Well, Chicago, we have ourselves a new mayor. Just in case you've been under a rock for the past 24 hours, I will go ahead and re-announce that Brandon Johnson has been elected to serve as the 57th mayor of Chicago. It was evident everyone could not have been saved, that they were going to hit somewhere. And by raising those bridges, it felt like the mayor chose to protect the wealthy and white and leave the black people, the brown people in the city to fend for themselves, trapped on their side of the city with the rioters and the looters. How do you respond to that?
Well, that's just fundamentally untrue.
I understand at one point in time that you referred to Chicago as a hellhole. But I know that at that time you hadn't really lived here. You may not have spent a ton of time in the area. But as I understand it today, you live here now. You spent some time living here now. Do you feel differently about our city, or do you still think it's comparable to being in hell?
That statement was not meant to insult anyone, and I'm sorry if it insulted anyone.
We found out the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade. No one saw that coming today, not even the vice president. So we're waiting on her to give us new remarks where she will address Roe v. Wade, a historic decision by the Supreme Court that fundamentally shifts the way this country is going to operate for millions of women around the world. Soumya, Priya, is there any truth to what Cecile said, that when you immigrate to this country, someone pulls you aside and tells you that black folks are the ones at the bottom of the caste here and that we don't work as hard and we're not as intelligent and we're not as honorable? Does that tension exist?
I mean, I would say you don't even have to wait to come to this country to really be informed of that, right?
In March of this year, when he was sentenced to 150 days, I believe it was, in jail, and you called it a kangaroo prosecution, if I'm not mistaken, and mob justice. Why was it important for you to do that?
As the prosecutor, I have what's called prosecutorial discretion. So I get to decide what to charge, what not to charge, how to handle these cases. It is the bedrock of the role.
How do you add more police to communities and neighborhoods where the relationship is so tense and mistrustful?
Well, first of all, let me point out that when I visit the communities, the lack of police presence in many of the communities, it's not so much that the communities mistrust the police. They don't trust the police to protect them.
One thing that was not lost on me last night was the fact that Lori Lightfoot, the very first black woman to hold that office, was a one-termer, as was the only other woman to ever hold that office, Jane Byrne. What do you think it says about us as a city that the only two women we've ever had serve as mayor have been one-termers?
I think it's a little disappointing.
It sounds like you have a very progressive agenda, and you have branded yourself as the true progressive in this race. And that has, of course, sparked a war of words and sorts. But you know what I'm getting ready to say. With Congressman Garcia. And of course, you have gone on the record as saying that you would not necessarily endorse him, even if he made a runoff and you didn't, as a progressive per se. And I really wanted to give you an opportunity to just clear that up for folks, explain that to people. What's the relationship there?
So I have a great deal of respect for Congressman Garcia, and I'm not going to make any projections about who I'm going to endorse because, of course, I'm committed and I'm confident that I'm going to be the candidate.